I was curious too, like just to dive into deepfakes because I know we're gonna cover a lot in the area. But for you, like, when did you first get introduced into doing deepfakes?
I think it's difficult to pinpoint it, but like it's 4 years ago. I think I was still working at a Belgian television company as a VFX artist and doing these things. And it was like the news bulletin where there was like, they were talking about this new technology, deepfake, and it's being misused. And when I saw that, I was immediately intrigued by the technology itself, right? Like, yeah, but that technology is interesting, like creatively, right? Not people misusing it, but creatively. So I started looking up the technology. What is this? How does it work? It was really vague, but that's how I got into contact with the technology, and that's when I started fantasizing about creative possibilities using this technology.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. Like, I'm curious for you, did it instantly kind of resonate? Like, holy crap, like there's so much potential here to do so much.
Yeah, yeah. I immediately started thinking about, for example, de-aging someone's face. I think that was straightforward. Um, Also, deep faking an actor's face on stunt doubles. I think that's straightforward as well. In the past, you had to find a lot of. When you're using stunt doubles, it's always like the back of the head and don't show the face, but that's a thing of the past. And that was already my first thing I was thinking of. Was also the second video I ever made using this technology was actually, there were two things. The first video I ever made was bringing back a legend. It's a Belgian legend, a Belgian singer. And there was this artist doing a cover of his song. And he had permission of the family to do the song and to work with his music. And somehow I came in contact with his manager and we were brainstorming about like, hey, let's do a music video for him. And that's when I told his manager, like, I found this technology and I'm not sure how to use it, but I think it's quite cool. It's interesting. And I was talking with him about it, and somehow we came up with the idea, like, what if we do a music video where your artist is standing on a stage performing the song in front of an empty hall, like an big empty hall, and there's like one seat, and one guy is walking, getting closer and closer, and in the end he's sitting on the chair and he's clapping like he loves it. And then we saw who that guy is. And of course, it's the legend we're bringing back. And the family liked the idea. And we pulled it off. It took me 4 to 5 months to get it done. It wasn't great, but the idea was cool. And I think that's the first thing I did with the technology. And the second video I did was mob manipulation. That's where I made this video of Jon Snow. It's a famous scene in Game of Thrones, saying sorry for season 8 of Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. It was meant to be something funny because a lot of people had the same feeling, and I made sure it's a famous scene. I had put my name in big in the corner to make sure people realized it's a parody, and it went all over the world. And I knew it's the first time that this is happening, so news are going to pick it up. It's the ideal moment to raise for awareness as well.
That's so great, and it's such a great idea as well. In a lot of ways, like getting that traction, putting your name on things, like getting that notoriety, was that there's some intent there, so that way you're building your brand, you're getting recognition to be able to do potentially, future things, or what was the idea behind that?
I immediately realized the potential of this technology. I realized it's going to get big, it's going to get to a higher level of quality. And I just know it's going to get to that point where it's going to be usable for commercials, for movies, for all these kind of things. So I just figured, like, look, if I focus and I get better and better and keep experimenting, keep doing things with this technology that no one has ever done, for example, doing translations from English to French or whatever, using this technology, well, someone has to notice me eventually, right? I just keep posting stuff, keep doing it. And eventually someone has to pick it up, because one of my dreams, and it's not something people don't know. I had a few dreams, like one day I wanted to work with Peter Jackson, work on the new Lord of the Rings. That's the big dream of me. I also had a dream working with Matt and Trey, like that was a big one as well. Mm-hmm. And to get there, you just have to keep pushing stuff out. So I had my Instagram channel, and I kept pushing all of my VFX stuff, all my videos on there, so people would start recognizing my work, and eventually, if they need someone, they might find me and might give me a call.
I love that, because I think it's something that a lot of people overlook. They're always frustrated that they're not getting the jobs they want, things like that, but they're not really putting intent behind attracting the right kind of people to the right kind of projects they want to do, such as deepfakes. Yeah. And just in general, like, you got to be out there to, build awareness that you're there. Yeah. Hire me. I'm curious too, like, what are some of the biggest challenges in creating deepfakes right now, and also how close are we to conquering the Uncanny Valley?
I think the biggest challenge is it's always something different, and with that I mean, with every project there are like certain technical issues. And if it's, for example, if we have to revive a certain person, I think the biggest challenge there is first of all is gathering the data. The client always gives us certain data to work with. How are we going to work with that data? Because it's mostly really old, not that high quality. How are we going by with restoration of that data? For example, if we want to revive Elvis, for example, we'll need good quality data of Elvis, because otherwise, if the stuff you're putting in is crap, well, what's coming out isn't going to be good either. I think that's a challenge when you're working with old faces, estates of Marilyn Monroe and people like that. Lighting conditions as well, or obstructions is a big challenge for deepfakes as well. When you have a lookalike or someone acting, sometimes the expression is like, you can look like someone, right? But when you're smiling or you're doing something facially, it maybe doesn't really resemble it looks like how the actor you want to deepfake does it. For example, if you have Trump, I think that's a really good example. Trump, whenever he's looking or when he's smiling, on the side of his mouth, left and right, he has this thing, he's always looking sad. He's always looking sad. Even when he's smiling, he's looking sad, right? And that's something that's really difficult for a lookalike to mimic. And you have certain technical solutions to do that. It means you have to go in the face before you start deepfaking, start altering the face before you start even doing it. Because you have to know that when you're deepfaking on a certain person, you're changing the way that person looks, but you're not changing how one does certain expressions. So if I deepfake Trump on top of your face, it's 80% Trump, it's going to be 20% you. That's the mix. That's the middle ground somewhere. That's why we have to fine-tune you as much as possible to look like Trump. And there are a lot of things you have to keep in mind there. The difference of how far are the eyes apart? How big is your nose? How does your mouth shape looks like, especially when you're smiling or when you're talking? How do your cheeks move when you're talking? Like, there are a lot of things you have to keep in mind, and I think those are all technical difficulties, and they're probably going to get solved in the next few years when we're introducing different AIs on top of what we're doing already. But for now, those are technical difficulties. When we're doing translations for clients, for example, we also do translations at my company, where we have an English commercial and they want to do it in French. Then there are a lot of different things, because you can change what someone's saying, but you cannot change body language. So if you're saying 3 words in English and I have to translate that, and I have a French voiceover or a new voice doing 5 words, well, when you're breathing, it doesn't make sense to have the French guy to make him to have him still talking, because the body language won't match to what's being said, right? So that's a total different issue.
Yeah, no, I think this is really fascinating, and all of these things you don't really think about until you have to be solving them. My question was just how close do you think we are to conquering the Uncanny Valley?
I think we're really close to that. I think Deep Tom and the models I've been using for that are quite old right now, so there are new ones coming up. We're quite close, I think, especially if you look at how people are reacting to him, interacting with him. It's I think Deep Tom is a prime example of one of the first deepfakes to somehow cross the Uncanny Valley, partially, I think. So I think we're really close to really covering that, to be honest.
That's cool. I was curious too, like where you see all this heading, especially both for entertainment, but also outside of entertainment too.
Well, I have a few dreams, and that's, I think in 10 years time, we'll look back at because this is, just to be clear, synthetic media in general is going to revolutionize the whole industry. It's going to revolutionize how we create content, how we absorb content, how we enjoy content. And with that I mean is big changes that are going to come is, for example, translations. That's one big thing where at the moment we're doing commercials, right? So let's say Nike, if Nike has to create a commercial that's going around the world, that probably at the moment they probably do it like in 5 languages, English, French, German, I guess, Spanish, and probably Chinese or whatever, and they'll look for actors that can speak all of those languages. If they cannot do it, they'll look for actors which can phonetically learn how to speak those languages. If that doesn't work out, they'll find for different actors for each country. That means they'll have to do it in separate recording days. And if they have one actor who can do all, it'll be an extremely long day of recording. Now, if we start using the technology that we are, with my company, what we are working on right now, that means they'll have to do it just in English. And then we get the videos and we can translate it to whatever language you want. And sometimes we even partner up with a synthetic audio company where they can, for example, they can just replicate the original actor's voice even. So I could be doing in Dutch because I'm from Belgium. I could be doing the Dutch voiceover, and if it's a female leading the role in that commercial, they just could use her voice filter on top of mine. So now she's speaking Dutch with her voice, and you don't even see it's fake. Like now you have an English, you did a recording of an English commercial in a few hours. It only took a few hours, and you can translate it to whatever language you want. So it's opening up a ton of new markets. Yes. Same thing goes for movies. You have all of these foreign movies that are not going worldwide because they're only in one language. And sometimes you have like an American producer who buys the rights and they do a remake, right? The issue here is always going to be an American version of that movie. But what if you could take this Swedish movie and you could just start using AI to translate it to English? You'll still have that Swedish style in that movie, but it'll be completely English. And it opens up a whole new market as well. So I think that's interesting. We did a project with Respeecher. That's the synthetic audio company, by the way. They're amazing at what they're doing. And we did a project with Alu Black. That's the singer of Wake Me Up of Avicii. And we made him sing the song in English, Chinese, and Spanish. And he doesn't speak those languages. So wow. You can see a music video on his YouTube channel where you can see and you can hear him singing these languages, but he doesn't speak any of them. His voice is fully synthesized, like a singing voice, and the video as well. And it sounds and looks hyper real. So I think that's interesting as well. Like next time in a few years when Justin Bieber releases a new song, he'll just do it in Chinese, English, and Hindi. Like those are the big markets, right? And he'll be #1 in all of those countries. And he doesn't even speak the language. So that's quite interesting, I think. Those are just production things I'm thinking about. This is mob manipulation. This is not even, I'm not even talking about deepfake per se. That's something completely different. But I'm so intrigued by where this is all going. But for me, deepfake, face swap, it's just the beginning of all of it. And with that, I mean, we're talking about the metaverse, and it's something really vague. But when I think about the metaverse and where this is all going, I always think about that movie Ready Player One. I think that's a perfect example. And I can imagine in a couple of years that I'll have contact lenses or some type of sunglass on, and I'll be sitting on my table in my living room here in Bangkok having breakfast, and I'll call my grandparents and I'll tell them like, I want to have breakfast together. And they're okay, and they're gonna sit on their table, and because I have the contact lens on, and they're sitting in Belgium, they'll sit with me on my table in Bangkok remotely, and it'll feel hyper real. It'll feel as if they're with me. It's not like we are having contact now with a camera or face swap or WhatsApp, whatever. It's not in a monitor. No, it's hyper real. I can see them sitting in front of me. I can have a talk with them. We're having dinner together, and I think that's amazing to do that. And at the same time, because currently with face swap, we're just focusing on the face, right? But it's just a matter of time before we start doing the whole body. And if we have all that data, that means we can regenerate it in the metaverse, hyperreal. So I'll have that breakfast with my grandparents, hyperreal, and let's say in 20 years' time, when they're not here anymore, I could go back and revisit that memory, and I'll never forget what that memory looked and felt like. And I think that's an amazing thing to think about, and that's where I see this technology going. And I think that would be, it's like a second life, right? It's a total different way of living, and I think we're moving towards that.
It's really exciting because I think for you and I growing up, you always think like, oh yeah, one day AI is going to do this or this or this, but it's one of those things that you kind of don't notice. But right now we are living in the early stages of that. Like, it's not a one day we'll get to experience this. Like, I can't help but go on 2-minute papers several times a week just to see like what new things are popping up. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty fascinating time for sure to just see like all these new innovations with AI, let alone where it's all headed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think now is the time to dream, because there are still so many things possible with this technology. How can we use it in creative ways? How can we use it to make people smile? I think now is the time, because I think that's why it's so exciting, because no one has done this before. Now is the time to experiment, and it's like the landscape is still open. Like, there are so much possibilities.